In our previous video, we talked about Napoleon's fall from grace, the desperation that fueled Belgium once Napoleon had been deposed, and the unbridled hope for a return to Napoleonic rule after his escape from Elba. Belgium had one last chance at a return to life under Napoleon, and if they did not want to see that hope die out, they required a victory at Waterloo. In 1815, Napoleon Bonaparte escaped exile on Elba and returned to France, rekindling his ambition to regain power. The new King of France sent armies to represent Napoleon, but the armies would end up siding with Napoleon. This happened a multitude of times. He reconquered France without firing a gun. The French king fled quickly after. Napoleon's triumphant return led to widespread support in the southern provinces of the Netherlands. In other words, modern-day Belgium. The people of these regions were disenchanted with King William I's rule, which was seen as oppressive and dominated by the northern Dutch. Belgium's position during Napoleon's return was fraught with complexities. While the majority of the Belgian population favored Napoleon's return, viewing him as a liberator from the rule of King William I, not all Belgians were supportive of the French Emperor. Some Belgians remained loyal to King William and fought alongside the Seventh Coalition. Others chose to remain neutral, hoping to avoid the destruction that would undoubtedly follow the battle. But it was undeniable that both within Flemish and Walloon communities, Napoleon was favored. In the 100 Days campaign that followed, Belgian civilians will do their best to supply Napoleon's armies. Many civilians served as his spies. Napoleon received many reports from Belgian citizens about the whereabouts of enemy forces. The civilians were not as keen to share this information with the British and Prussian occupants, however. This gave Napoleon an ever so slight advantage. During the campaign, Belgium became the battlegrounds. Before the Battle of Waterloo, Napoleon had received intel that Blücher and Wellington had split their armies. Hearing this, he was delighted. Napoleon marched upon Blücher's Prussians and bested him at the Battle of Ligny. All was looking well, and Napoleon marched on to Waterloo. He sent newly promoted Marshal Grouchy with a third of his army in order to keep the Prussians from supporting Wellington's army. The internal divisions within Belgium were evident during the battle. Belgian soldiers on both sides faced the agonizing reality of fighting against their own countrymen. This internal strife added an emotional and psychological dimension to the battle, intensifying the human toll of the conflict. Belgian soldiers on both sides fought fiercely, but Napoleon gained ground. When Wellington realized this, he reluctantly announced that if Prussian reinforcements were not on their way, they would retreat back to England. But Napoleon's victory was not to be. Prussian reinforcements were on their way, and Grouchy did not march to the sound of guns. Napoleon, realizing this, sent forward his elite soldiery. Initially they were successful. Wellington's army was on breaking point, but the Prussians came too fast. The old guard routed and the battle was lost. Despite the valiant efforts of Napoleon's armies, the Seventh Coalition emerged victorious at the Battle of Waterloo. Napoleon's defeat marked the end of his rule, forever. This time he was banished to St. Helena, from which he could not escape. Following the battle, Belgium found itself at a crossroads. The Congress of Vienna convened once more to address the territorial reorganization of Europe. Despite its pro-Napoleon sentiments, the major European powers, particularly Britain, were concerned about the potential implications of an independent Belgium aligned with France. Instead, they decided to reunite Belgium with the northern provinces, forming the United Kingdom of the Netherlands once more. The forced union with the northern provinces was an untenable agreement for Belgium. In the aftermath of the Battle of Waterloo, tensions between the Belgian population and King William's Dutch-dominated government escalated. Discontent over political, linguistic and religious issues reached a boiling point. In 1830, inspired by the ideals of the French Revolution and encouraged by recent independence movements in Greece and Latin America, Belgium erupted into revolution. This revolution culminated in the creation of an independent Belgian state, free from Dutch rule. The Belgian people, with their strong cultural and linguistic identity, demanded their autonomy and the establishment of a constitutional monarchy. Britain would eventually recognize this independence and neutrality, in no small part due to Leopold I's connections to the British throne. At last, Belgium had what it wanted.